So we do need to explain consciousness materially, but to do so requires only a shift in perspective. Thinking of the shapes we traditionally just observe in biology from the exterior as actors in other people's perception. And that sounds like an extra intangible thing to me. It's intellectual time.
Yes? 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 Oh, come on! Yes! Damn!
Okay, so today I wanted to just do something a little different than I normally do. I'll still be talking to the camera, but I am just going to read you one of my own comments, okay? So, for people who don't know, I make comments that are pretty long online. I don't think anyone reads them ever, but if ever people did one day read them, they would notice, Kieran's comments are always really long. And I think this goes against me. I don't think anyone reads them, but I always feel like I have to make these long comments. Otherwise, I'm not being entirely truthful or I'm missing some part of the picture. So today, I watched an episode. I still haven't quite finished it, but it seems to somewhat be going around a little bit in circles. I will finish it. I always finish the things that I start. This conversation is between Alex O'Connor on the channel Cosmic Skeptic. He has his new podcast called Within Reason, which I'm kind of enjoying so far. It's pretty new, but I'm enjoying it. His latest guest is called Philip Goff, and he is, I just read the description a little bit. He's a professor at some university that I cannot remember. I'll put it up on the screen. He is a proponent, a defendant of the panpsychist view, which says that all of the universe is conscious, made up of some intangible thing called consciousness, and that explains things better than we currently can. And I don't think it does. I suppose that I would be described as a materialist. I don't really like describing myself as an ist in any kind of way. I feel like I'm like Neil deGrasse Tyson in this sense, that I think people's minds tend to stop somewhere when they hear a certain word. They hear that you're an atheist or a materialist, and they go, typical of this person, of this type of person. I already know what they're going to say. But you'd be surprised at what people say, so I try not to categorize people, and I don't like to be categorized myself. But I think for the purposes of this conversation, I would line up more with what a materialist might say. But I do think that I have some surprising thing that I'm going to say. So I'd like to read my comment. It's a bit of a long comment. As far as a video goes, it might be a short video. So long comment, but short video. It might sound a bit more robotic than I normally like to sound. This is why I don't script my videos normally. But I thought that because it was a complicated subject, it's interesting at least to explore this option of just scripting something just for one video and doing it that way. We start with less true truths first, and accompanying original assumptions, and with them, move towards more true truths, with which we redefine the original assumption and replace it with a new assumption. The original assumption is that there is a thing called consciousness. And thanks to experiment, which is like saying thanks to using our senses and advanced senses to look around, we have discovered we only need create one set of constructive rules to explain everything we see. Physical rules. Now we must redefine our original assumption. There no longer seems to be a need for consciousness. It is okay to let go of assumptions. It isn't dismissive to redefine our starting point based on new evidence. However, simply saying there is no need to define consciousness materially is a materialist cop-out. Of course it needs defining, but it is simple. So relatively simple. Physics is an odd mixture of analyzing the vastness of the spatial unknown around our planet, cosmology, and the minute interactions underlying all we experience day to day. But for some reason we do not call physics our day-to-day macroscopic analysis of human physical activities, only inanimate objects. Why? Medicine, genetics, biology is physics. Only it is the physics of more complex geometric shapes than the basic particles of nature. Biology, proteins, amino acids, molecular construction is simply more complicated physics. There is this complex scale of human biology, and afterwards, psychology, human behavior in groups, and sociology. These are also physical sciences. Only the amount of intelligence and pattern recognition ability it would take to predict how population movements would react based on a subatomic modification is far beyond our abilities. We simply haven't yet widely noticed that we can modify large-scale geometry causally with a tiny subatomic change that is enabled at the right time and place. This is yet to be experimentally confirmed, but it is a fair assumption. At the very least, we can understand human biology as the continuation in scale of geometric construction. This implies we can treat all reality as a set of gradually more complex geometric shapes, and that the specific human shape we take is able to sense, thanks to biological explained neurons in our skin, and send a current that occasionally requires chemical interactions to the brain, which is organized specifically to treat these impulses according to a set of imperatives that have helped us to survive and recreate this giant biological system. Evolution. Survival. Survival is found in particle environments, by the way. An environment that does not allow for certain geometric shapes to form or propagate will, by definition, limit the ability for those shapes to survive. These worlds, the particle world and the biological world, are the same. The only difference is the complexity of the shape. And careful analysis of the complex shape, biology, allows us to determine exactly what every part of our complex biological makeup does. Just like checking with Feynman diagrams what every interaction of every particle with every other does. So just a little something. I am not an expert in Feynman diagrams, but as far as I can understand, this is what Feynman diagrams do. Okay, but for the purposes of the comment, I didn't mention that I didn't know that much about Feynman diagrams, okay? A bit of humility right there. The possibilities are numerous, and on a new biological scale, with all these complex biological processes, the complexity exponentially arises. This is still a physics theory. As such, the materialist view does explain consciousness. It explains it via this acknowledgement of exponential increase in the complexity of shapes, treating the human body like a shape, essentially. And consciousness need not emerge gradually. The shape, by adding all these biological abilities together, i.e. the ability to sense environmental changes, temperature, sound perception, sight, etc., can react to them. So the shape can react to the biological changes. I always thought that sentence was a bit confusing, so I'm just summing it up again. Consciousness is only mysterious because of how impressive the human shape is, compared to a shape human brains can intuitively understand, like a crystalline structure, or a set of evolving vectors, like a flow of water or air. We now have to conceive of these unique shapes, neurons, and all the different chemicals, serotonin, dopamine, ATP. Again, I'm not aware of all of the different chemicals. I just want to let people know that, a bit of humility. All these different chemicals acting quasi at once to create one moment of what is called the human experience. The human experience. Or colloquially, or familiarly, consciousness. Therefore, materialism does explain what consciousness is. It is just that the average human intellect, most people, I'm not saying people are average, is still mystified by a process that requires the simultaneous intuitive tracking of the many physical processes, and we are more comfortable tracking much less. This is why we can read intuitively the currents in water and determine where we may end up if we find ourselves in one. We can intuitively track all the variables, all the physical processes simultaneously. We cannot yet do this for our bodies, so we cannot be aware of our own complexity. And so this complexity is easier to mystify and make unique, like the concept of infinity, nothingness, everythingness, the domain of past philosophy. Now, a small apart that I didn't actually put in my comment. I am going to mention something about uniqueness a bit later, which is pertinent. So when I'm saying unique here, I am trying to not make too unique a concept like consciousness so that it cannot meld with the rest of our physical theory. But I do believe that the rest of our physical theory does involve a notion of uniqueness. Consciousness is no more and no less than your human experience. This is verified experimentally by reducing your body's abilities. You reduce your ability to be conscious. If your senses are impaired, you are consciously impaired. We can physically define every part of our body's abilities, and if we destroy or impair a specific part, and we experience less, it is proof consciousness is adding all these abilities together, and that you can chop up consciousness into parts, which is something that is not said in Cosmic Skeptic Alex O'Connor's video. He actually says we cannot chop up consciousness, but you can. But I'm going to mention exactly how you can chop it up. And so not all consciousness is the same. And all these different conscious abilities are directly, materially traceable to a specific geometric shape. Therefore, it is the specific shape that makes the specific consciousness. And the material shape is required for that specific consciousness. This is the evidence. The only way to deny this chain of logic is to refute the concept of evidence as valid to determine truth. And if panpsychists wish to forego evidence because it is by definition material, and they believe with no evidence that consciousness is a magical force that requires no material evidence to explain, then they can. But they will always know that it is by choosing to refute material evidence as material creatures that their explanation can make sense. They choose to deny their own abilities. To determine their own surroundings and survive in them requires material evidence of danger versus non-danger. And I find it suspicious that they choose to ignore evidence when it comes to intellectual pursuits, but for day-to-day activities are willing to construct their physical image of the world geometrically with physical evidence. The previously mentioned physical material explanation of consciousness is consistent. It explains consciousness as specific shapes adding together, does not conflict with measurement, and allows for a prediction even, a test. Create physical shapes designed to detect new information or resolve information better, detect more photons per second in an eye, for example, that are biologically compatible with humans. And you should be able to increase your level of consciousness. If you feel like body modification is too radical as a test, you can simply take our smartphones as a non-invasive example. They allow us access to more information, and so we are conscious of more information. We can make better, faster decisions, and this is still a physics theory. There is a direct cause and effect chain between the information online and your decision-making changing. This is like extending a sense, adding consciousness. If your brain develops its multitasking ability better because of this increase of flux of information, you can track more information and increase your quality of decision-making, i.e., better decisions in the same amount of time. Naively, you could look at this new human as being more intelligent than a smartphone-less human, more in tune with nature, the universe, more conscious of their surroundings. If we can directly associate a unique consciousness to a unique geometric shape, there is no more need for a generalized force called consciousness with a big C. It is now a collection of specific abilities. So we do need to explain consciousness materially, but to do so requires only a shift in perspective, thinking of the shapes we traditionally just observe in biology from the exterior as actors in other people's perception. And that sounds like an extra intangible thing to me. The intangibility of the modification of perception. As one thing can be material from the outside, it is experienced because of its ability to act only on the shape to which it is attached, to whom it is attached. Therefore, making this a unique shape, and this is what I was talking about, uniqueness, as is every other shape in the world, every particle, every cell, every neuron, every human, No shape, no matter how similar to others it may be, isn't unique, or it would be the other shapes. This creates an appropriate divide that satisfies the unique quality consciousness is given by the Panpsychists, or the people who believe consciousness is somehow more special or more mysterious. I believe this is the mistakenly sought-after intangibility Panpsychists find compelling. Except here we can make it arise with a material view of the world and a new acknowledgement, the importance of perception in analyzing the physical. And that's my comment. I hope that you found this enlightening. I hope you enjoyed it. What do you think? Let me know. I'm interested. I think this is compelling. I think that this is doing more than what materialists do, which is to say there's nothing to explain. I do think there is something to explain. It's just that no one has put together all the pieces that currently already exist properly in one satisfactory theory that is worded properly. I think it's important to word it properly as well. Talking about perception and saying that a shape can be perceived from the outside and can act on something else, and this is something that is missing from a physical theory, and yet it is physical. The difference is that what is forgotten in most physical theories today is the fact that it is created by a person that has a specific shape. That's not what's written into the theory. If that wasn't clear, what I was saying at the end, what I'm saying is every physical theory should have as a little like a side note, the small writing at the bottom that you have to sign, and you're not reading that little writing, is that all our physics theories are created by humans. Like we are the ones making the physics theory from our own perception, and so everything that we see is from the perception of a human, and we're not acknowledging it as strongly as I think we should, because as far as I can tell, we are just content with calling things objective when there is no evidence of objectivity. There is only evidence of globality, of adding a lot of things together to make more and more sense of the universe. That's why I started my comment with, we start with a less true truth to move towards more true truths and to redefine our original assumptions. This works not just for consciousness, this works for every type that you could imagine, every type of theory, every type of inquiry. So anyway, my name is Kieran LeCam. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Damn!